afternoon, everybody. So my name is James Fellows. I'm the founder of the Bridge of Hope Careers, which is an inclusive talent portal. And I was born lucky.
And my name's Chance Bleu-Montgomery, and I'm the Partner Support Manager for Bridge of Hope. And I was born unlucky.
We both work for a social impact business called Prosper 4. And our claim to fame, if you can call it that, is that most of us have been locked up. In my case, in a psychiatric ward outside New York.
And in my case, in a prison in Brixton and a mental hospital in Hackney.
So, as I said, I was born lucky. Well, that's probably an understatement. I was born white, male, and extremely privileged. I had a very happy, idyllic childhood, and age 13, I was sent away to the world's most famous boarding school. Yep, that one. I was in the same class, and in fact, I was in the same gambling ring as a boy called Cameron, who went on to run the country. I was a couple of grades below this great big polar bear boy, teenager called Boris, who went on to run the country into the ground. And while I'm on that subject, in case you're wondering, I was a little older than Kamikaze, who's taken that particular concept of running the country into the ground to a whole new level. But I do have to admit, I was there a couple of years before. I don't know the best way of describing this boy, but a remarkable boy, probably is the most generous, called Jacob, who's now the minister for the 17th century. But please forgive me, there's nothing I can do about it. I was sent there. So after leaving Eton, I went on to Edinburgh, and I then spent the next 20 years of my life in the corporate world, in the drinks industry. So I worked for Bass, I worked for Diageo, the wonderful people from Diageo here today. So I was on the Guinness side, and life was pretty great. I got moved over to America, and by 2008, I was running most of the biggest customers in Diageo in North America. I was happily married, I had 3 kids, a mansion, and a swimming pool. What could possibly go wrong? Well, pretty much everything, to be honest. And I was unfortunately laid off during the crash at that time. And then I had 6 or 7 years where, frankly, anything that could go wrong did go wrong. And I'll spare you the gory details. Suffice to say, it involved being sued, swindled again, lost all my money, and everything started to unravel. And I ended up running out of money. All my savings had been effectively stolen from me. I couldn't access cash. And there was one fateful day when I had to go to the supermarket to buy food for my family. And I hadn't got any money on my credit cards. I didn't have any more overdraft left. And I scrambled together from the back of the car seat $5.41 to buy my family food for a week. And my big decision was, okay, do I buy a loaf of bread and some Nutella, or do I buy a box of cereal and some milk? And those of you who are parents here know we're all hardwired to feed your kids. And I wasn't able to feed my kids. And my wiring effectively came undone. The next couple of weeks, I couldn't operate, I couldn't turn on a computer. I frankly couldn't even pick up a bowl. You know, it was that bad. And then I ended up getting sectioned for the foreseeable future. I was sent to a psychiatric ward just outside New York. Kind of interesting experience. I'm not sure if any of you have been there. Most people don't typically own up or stand up in front of a lot of people and say, this is where I've been, but that's where I was. It's actually not hugely different to a hospital. Apart from the front door, it's got rather big lock on the front of it, and you ain't getting out come high or hell water. And I also noticed a couple of differences as well. It took me a bit of time, but I was like, okay, there's no curtains. There's no shower curtains. Couldn't quite work out why that was, and then the penny dropped after a few days. But also they had very, very thick glass window. How do I know that? Because we were on the 6th floor, and one of my inmates decided to throw themselves out of that thick glass window, unfortunately bounced back in. So it was a bit traumatic, I have to say. But I was then brought back to the UK and was like, okay, come back to the UK and see if you can recover. And that's when it completely unraveled. I lost my marriage, I lost my job, I lost my home, I lost my kids. It all went like a house of cards. And my consolation prize was a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, which, to be honest, at the time, I didn't even know what the hell it was. And so I had to get a job. I had to get a job somewhere if I could, and nobody would give me one. Having been white, male, and privileged and never experienced barriers to employment ever, nobody would touch me with a 12-foot barge pole. The only people who did was a frozen meat factory. And they're like, we don't give a crap what your CV looks like, and we don't frankly care at all about anything as long as you're prepared to get up at 4 in the morning and hack ice off the walls at minus 55 degrees for 12 hours, which I was, and I did for a year. And I clawed my way back from that, back into the drinks industry, and I'm like, okay, here's a chance of coming back. I did that for a couple of years, started climbing the greasy ladder again, or pole again, and I got made redundant 4 years ago for the final time. And that was when I had a bit of an epiphany moment. I sat on a wall, believe it or not, in Islington. I normally say in Islington, not thinking that Christ is 100 yards down the road, but it was a church, literally 100 yards down the road. And I had a bit of an epiphany moment. And somebody was saying, look, mate, do you want to carry on flogging legal drugs for the rest of your life? Or do you actually want to do something meaningful? So I knew it was the latter, but I had no idea what. But one thing I knew, it was going to be something to do with jobs. Why? Because when I'd had employment, life was golden. And when I hadn't, life was... And there was no middle ground. So I thought, well, maybe it's not just me. So I was trying to find an angle. I was like, okay, you know, how can I do something nobody else is doing and I could actually make a meaningful difference? So I started talking to organizations that help people get back on their feet, commonly known as charities. And I talked to charities who looked after neurodiverse talent, ex-offenders, refugees, veterans. You pick your poison. And I said, what do you do? And the answer is, we pick people up, we dust them down, and we rehabilitate them. And we get them job ready. I said, well, that's marvelous. What do you do once you've got them job ready? And they all went, oh, no, we don't do anything then. And I heard this 35 times in a row, and I'm like, well, this is bonkers. You've got all these people now coming out, having been helped back on their feet, or given a chance in life, supported by amazing organizations, and the one thing they need to really get back into society, we all know, is a job, and nobody was helping them do that. And meanwhile, 4 years ago, when we started, you know, no different from now, all these organizations were looking for more people and wanted to be more diverse and more inclusive. So hence the Bridge of Hope. So it was to connect these two groups. And 2 years ago, we then turned it into a digital platform. And the hope was that we may be able to have 4,000 or 5,000 candidates on our platform who are from these different groups. And after just under 2 years, we've got 79,000. So it's gone kind of bonkers. And we work with about 100 charities and social enterprises, plus also sort of digital boot camps, and any organizations that helping people get back on their feet or get ultimately into employment. And so that's great. That's kind of our candidate feed. But we also realized there was a bit of a fundamental flaw in that we were very reliant on third parties feeding the talent in. We're like, well, you've got to find the talent rather than just purely rely on that. So I started looking around and going, okay, who can we talk to who can help us actually find the talent? And that's where I was introduced to the Adway guys. Now, they're the guys with the purple dodgy Prosecco over there. And I'd heard about them. I drank the Prosecco, but I didn't really know what they did. And I found out what they do is basically go after the passive talent, you know, which is 80%, 85% of the talent who are not actively looking for a job. They may already have a job and are happy in that job, or they may have just given up on getting a job. In our case, a lot of them will have done. If you're autistic, you have a 16% chance of having a job. If you come out of prison, you're 84% likely to still be looking for a job after a year. So we're now going to them and saying, well, guess what? It might be rubbish normally, and you may almost give up on getting a job. Come on our platform, and we've got clients and employers actively looking for people like you. So this is, as you can see, that's our feed. And then we work on the other side. We just work with large blue chip organizations. Not because we're arrogant, but frankly, we're too small to work with the little guys. But also we want to make sure our candidates have a great experience and they're going to go to a good home. And we're lucky enough, we've been trading just over 15 months. And we now have 32 blue chips we're working with. Lots of household names from Cognizant, Santander, Body Shop, Direct Line, you name it. And lots of agencies as well. But we're just on the start of a journey. And we'd love you to come on our journey with us. Help us. We don't have the answers. We're creating an ecosystem to try and build this, to try and make inclusive recruitment, normal recruitment, all recruitment be inclusive. And why is that so important? Because a job is simply the biggest game changer in life. So enough from me. I'm just the warm-up act. I'm now going to hand you over to Chance, who's the main man today, who's going to tell you his amazing story, and also what we do to try and help untapped talent actually on that pathway to getting a job and getting secure employment. So I will leave you with Chance. Thank you very much.
Cool. Nice one. Hi, everyone. As I said earlier, I'm Chance Bleu-Montgomery, the Partner Support Manager for Bridge of Hope. And so, here's my story, where I was born unlucky. I was born, in fact, into a family where my dad didn't think I was his. And so I experienced quite a lot of physical abuse when I was a child, the first being before I was 1 year old, which left me with what I thought were birthmarks until I was 21, and Mum told me what they really were. And so I didn't feel significant at home at all. And I left my family house and went into the streets, ran away a couple of times, finally left, and I met some friends. And those friends made me feel significant and loved. But the byproduct of that was that they were from the antisocial membership. And it was only going to be a matter of time before I myself got into trouble, and I did. By the time I was 16, I ended up in prison. And then by the time I was 18, my sister took me to a mental hospital because the trauma was just too much. The depression was too high. And, you know, I went on sort of trying to make some changes, chasing my tail, not to any great success, but I tried. And then fast forward, my sister, who was my rock, she died. She died of cancer. And I didn't want to talk about it because if I spoke about it, it would make it real, which is the worst possible thing you could do. Because within a year, my life unraveled and fell apart, and I ended up back inside one last time. But I asked myself this question. I said, sitting down in this prison cell, I said, do you like who you are? Do you like who you've become? And the answer was worse than no. In fact, I just thought that if this was going to be my life, and this was going to be who I am, I didn't see the point in having one. And so I seriously considered just ending it all. And so I was left with these choices to either not live or change. And so I threw everything and the kitchen sink and the neighbor's kitchen sink at change, and spent 3 years and 10 months in therapy to deal with those childhood traumas, to unlock some pain, done some equine therapy, and spent 5 years studying with the Open University to give myself an education my childhood didn't afford to me. And on swaves of personal development programs, I was on a mission. And then this incredible day just came upon me where I was filled with ebullience, and the warm tears of joy just came flooding down my face. And it was because for the first time in my entire life, I felt freedom. No more emotional discombobulation, no more anger. I was filled with forgiveness. And most importantly, I was topped to the brim with self-respect. And I realized two things that happened that day. One, my childhood experiences were no longer going to define my future. And two, I'd finally become the person I was always meant to be. And that was the day I decided whatever work I'm doing, whatever life I'm living, I want it to be nourishing the lives of other people. I want it to be nourishing communities. I want it to change lives. And I was introduced to James, and we became friends, and we began working together. And it was incredible because I looked at Bridge of Hope, and for me, it was like an invitation to heaven, because I was supporting people who come into contact with the criminal justice system, but now I could help veterans, people with neurodiversities, women return, the whole lot. It was fantastic. But to take a step back, once I felt that wonderful feeling of freedom, the irony was I was locked up. And so I began my work there. I took all the best components out of my journey of change. I used some of the components from business, such as showing the young men to look at their network in the form of assets and liabilities, and in getting them to deal with their lives as if it was a business. And I explained to them that a business, especially one that's going through a recession and things like this, they trim the fat, they get rid of the liabilities. And they do that to survive as a business. And I asked them, you need to do that to survive as a person. And then they look at their network, they start to see the assets. And I explained to them that if the majority of your network are liabilities, it will explain why your tilt in influence are towards the majority. But if you change that, your influences will shift. And I hope those young men to make that transition from an antisocial to a pro-social membership in the same way that I did. And then I looked at the environment I was in. How could I change the environment? I'm in an environment that was bankrupt of hope. Hope is the fuel we need for our aspirations, right? Hope is the fuel that drives us towards our goals. And here I was in an environment bankrupt of hope. And I realized that through studying businesses in their environments and this type of thing, that what was really important is if I take some position and try to make some changes. And so I don't know how I do it, but I did it, but I became the chairman of the prison council, and I sat on the rehabilitative culture committee and started to make my changes from there. I started to create spaces which were conducive to rehabilitation, conducive to change. Started to raise hope. And some of it was quite simple, like having a kitchen. You're asking these young men to go out into the streets and they, find jobs and all these things, but they can't cook. You've just given them £47 and said goodbye. And so I got a kitchen put in place so these young men, and I taught them how to cook rice and roast dinners and things, are fundamental things that would help them to support their families. This gave them a little bit of hope. And I created a wonderful space where voices could be heard, a platform, so staff can communicate with the prisoners. And so now the prison can say, these are our complaints. The staff can say, these are our complaints. But it's happening in the same room. Communication is taking place. As a result of this monthly meeting, prison fights, anger, and rebellion reduced incredibly. In fact, it was non-existent on the wing I was on because people were communicating. I decided to create a system where prison officers, where prisoners can give merit to a prison officer for their good deeds, for doing well in their job. And this changed the game, because now these prison officers were thinking, what can I do good to get these merits? Because they come from the governor. Hence being in that situation where you are in the boardroom and you can make those changes. And so I take all of that, take all that learned experience, take all that passion and drive and energy to change environments and to change the way people are doing things within their own establishments. I take that and it's all transferable, and I bring it across. And here I try to change the hearts and the minds in the recruitment space. I want people to think differently in that space. I want you recruiters to stop recruiting and start changing lives. Now, if you do that, your interview questions will change. Your attitude in that whole space will be different. You see, when I was away, I first realized the idea of finding diamonds in the rough. I realized that there were so many people like myself, so many people that just wanted to do better, wanted to be good, but opportunity did not lay down in front of them for them to pick up. And so it really is about knowing that you can find one of these diamonds, like you're mining as recruiters, and you find one of these diamonds in the rough. All we need is a little bit of polishing, and we will sparkle like any other diamond. Now, we know that it's pressure that makes the diamond. It's pressure that makes the diamond, years of it. And that's why it's so special. But it's pressure that makes our system impacted and marginalized candidates who face these barriers so resilient. It's pressure that makes them resilient. Do you understand now why I call them diamonds in the rough? No one's looking for them. Everyone's looking for the one that's already cut and crystalline, looking good, and some on a ring even. But these diamonds are out there. There are thousands. We have 80,000 diverse candidates from across the board, you know, all waiting to hear from people like yourselves, you know. And I'll ask you all, just as a show of hands, would any of you consider employing someone like me as you hear me today? If you show your hands. Thank you. The truth is, you wouldn't, because I'd never make it to the interview process. My CV will be rejected because there's a gap, you know, or I might not live in the right location, etc., etc. So yes, indeed, we're all looking for the diamonds and would like the diamonds in the rough, but we just can't get them. This is why I asked you to think completely differently in this space. You know, one of the most important things to us was to ensure that candidate journey was really important, that nourishing and supportive along the way. And so we put stuff in place. You know, I created this thing, the Coalition of Skills and Support Partners. And it was to just support these candidates as they're going through, whether it be a veteran or some neurodiversities or someone who experiences social anxieties. And so we have these stalls along a bridge that the candidates can access. And so if a candidate, for instance, is ambivalent, we have a system where they can tap their details in personality traits and find out where their personality is transferable to. Loads of different industries will come up and they can think widely. We have, you know, pathways into hospitality, all these things, but there was a couple that was just super important, and that was the free financial advice and candidates being able to access wages before payday. You know, so if a candidate's worked 2 weeks, they can access 2 weeks' wages, not free. The reason for this is because it's thinking outside the box. It's thinking from that point of empathy. If you go into a new job, it doesn't matter who you are. You're at your comfort zone. And if a utility bill comes in while you're trying to work your month in hand, that's going to raise anxiety right up to the sky. No one will notice that there's a problem. They'll just think this guy's not performing or something's up. But now, our candidates, they can access a week's wage out there, 2 weeks they've worked, pay that bill and carry on down the good path. Now, the second piece of financial support that we offer on Bridge of Hope is that all our candidates can access free financial advice. Very important in these times. But it's not just for the candidate, it extends to the whole family. And this, again, is thinking from a point of empathy. Now, if you're the one in your family who turns your life around, or you get a diploma or a degree or a fantastic job, it's not just you that got that diploma, degree, or fantastic job. Your whole family just got a degree. Everyone depends upon that one degree. And no one could, you know, a lot of people can't imagine the pressure that is on a single candidate who's the one doing well in the family. Everyone depends upon you. If a cousin is having a problem financially, you're recommended. You know, even if it's a cousin's friend, you're recommended. You help this guy and everyone looks to you for this help. Now, the reason why we have support for the family is to take that pressure off the candidate. To take that pressure off the candidate from their whole family. And so now our candidates can say, yes, absolutely, I can help you, cousin Tim. I'll introduce you to these guys. They're professionals. They'll give you a clear pathway out of your financial troubles. I've tried them myself, and they're better than anything that I could do. And that takes the pressure from off of the candidate, from their family. So not only is the pathway nourishing for the candidate, it's thinking about how nourishing can that pathway be for the candidates' families, whether they be veterans, whether they be someone with neurodiversities, you know, ADHD, or whatever it is. It's taking care of the whole. And in terms of attracting candidates, if you talk about, actually, we care about not just you, but we care about your whole family. In fact, we are the human family. And it's one thing that I super really want to do. You know, I want to help any of you to shift hearts and minds in your organizations. And we'll be happy to do an absolutely free webinar to all of your staff teams, just to get them to feel what you guys are feeling now, just to get them to understand that there are thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of diamonds in the rough out there, and we still claim to be struggling with D&I and inclusive recruitment. And so our QR codes for our LinkedIns are up here. If you would like that for your organizations, just click on it, drop me a message and say free webinar, or give me a shout or drop your email to me, and we'll be happy to do that. We share our profits with the charities for a reason, because we're not interested in the profit. We share it with them to help them thrive, and they're doing a very good job in bringing people, supporting people. What we want to do in coalition is shift the needle on social mobility. What we want to do is get everyone to mean it. And in order to mean it, you just have to think differently. Thank you.
I told you it was worth it, eh? Told you it was worth it. This is a remarkable story, folks. Two remarkable people representing a remarkable message. I do think everyone should take a picture of this. If you haven't already, go ahead and get your QR codes in and connect with these two guys. We don't have a huge amount of time because we're going to just charge into the main stage in a second, but we do have a couple of minutes for questions. So if anyone's got any questions, please raise your hand. I'm going to run the mic to you. You guys might need to wear those headphones in order to take the questions, by the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Any questions? Hands up.
Thank you.
No? Too shy. Okay. Let me ask a few questions. Perhaps I'll go with you, James, actually, because your journey was quite interesting in the sense. Can you hear me okay?
I'll come near to you. I can't hear it.
Okay.
It's okay.
Wear that. Okay, so your journey is quite interesting, I think, for me personally, because you were on this easy path, this privileged path, and then you fell away from it. Did you see the signs on the way? And if you could go back in time and look at what those signs were, what would they be?
Good question. I probably saw them, but I was in complete denial, is the honest answer.
I think we might need to go back to the mic.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Could you hear me?
I can hear.
Yeah.
That's fine. Go ahead.
So, well, first of all, did I realize it? I mean, the bipolar bit, I had no idea. I didn't know what bipolar was. And when I started having, well, I knew I was pretty manic. Everybody told me I was permanently manic, so I knew that bit. That was quite easy. And then I had these different episodes of what effectively were depression, but I had no idea. I just thought it was loss of confidence. I also thought it wasn't very manly to admit to something like that. And then when it got quite bad, and actually I went to see a doctor, and they turned to me and they said, right, okay, first of all, go to the chemist or pharmacist in America, and you go and get these drugs. Secondly, go straight to the local hospital, and there's a team experts waiting for you. So I thought that probably the best thing to do was throw both pieces of paper straight in the bin and go home and pretend nothing had happened. So, yeah, I probably saw it, but I was in full denial of it.
It's very difficult, and I think all of us, we're human beings. We go through these journeys. We go through these critical points, I guess. And I think we all need to be a little bit more aware as to what's going on and understand sort of where we might be at risk. Because I think everyone is only 2 or 3 decisions away from falling off.
Yeah.
You know, we're very, very close. We want to get to is not to figure it out when we do fall off. So hugely important. Chance, a question to you. One of the many things that you said that was amazing in your monologue was the idea that hope fuels change. And I thought that was so profound, because I think a lot of the times when people end up doing bad things, and bad things can happen in the corporate world, by the way. It doesn't have to be crime. It could be toxic people in the workforce, right? We had a huge crowd of people listening to Katrina's talk on difficult hiring managers, right? I would say that's a person that probably has lost a bit of hope because they're expressing negativity. They don't see a way out. They're despairing. How do we actually discover hope when there doesn't seem to be any that's there? Is there anything that you could share for us here, Chance?
I think when there's not a lot of hope in your environment, you have to find that hope first of all within yourself, and just use your determination. You see, the thing with system impacted people, with our motivation has morphed into a determination. And so you have to be determined. And so when you look at hope, you have to you have to ask the questions to the people in your environment. Actually, how hopeful do you feel here? How hopeful do you feel? And because if they don't feel hopeful, you really need to put things in place to raise that hope. You really need to understand what your candidates, what your staff teams need. You know, find out what's going on in the personal life if you can. You know, what do you need for family? What do you know, where do you want to go for your holiday? You know, and things like this. But most importantly, what journey do you want within this organization that will make you give the best version of yourself, where you'll be absolutely comfortable and creative and feel as though you are on a journey up?
You know what? How many of us actually ask that question of your team members or your staff? Are you hopeful? You know, are you hopeful of the future, guys? We don't ask that question, right? We just operationalize everything and think, here's the target here, whatever. We never ask the question, how do you feel about it? Are you hopeful? And if the answer is not what you want to hear, you as a leader have got to put into place a situation where that hope can raise, because nothing's going to change without that inspiration or without that desire to do it. Final thing I think you mentioned was really wonderful a story, which is this idea of a kitchen. And the kitchen for me became a metaphor really quickly, because it was this idea that there was action, was some control, some degree of ownership and activity that these people could control. Now I think when I lose hope, when I kind of go to a point where I despair, that's typically when I feel I don't control anything. You know, when I feel as if I'm just a cork bobbing in the ocean, I can't direct my own travel. So any input or advice to people that might feel that way, in order for them to get a bit of control over their lives and actually create a sense of agency? Any thoughts, either of you?
Do you know, first of all, on my part, I think it's really important for us to sort of explore our relationship with control. It's okay not to be in control. It really is okay not to be in control, and just to see how things play out. You know, look at how things are going. I think these are the things that stop us from giving, you know, autonomy to various departments and people and stuff to make something really thrive. This whole sense of control. It's not a big deal not to be in control. Look how many things we're not in control of, you know, and it's just okay, you know, and that's really, really important. To have that, and that will sort of lay down the mentality and the pathway for all the rest of it. Does that make sense?
That's right. It's, I guess zooming out, right, taking more of a macro view and understanding, you know, where we're at in the universe as you know, just one human being in 8 billion in a tiny planet in a crazy place. So,
and I think, just to build on that, I mean, we're not called Bridge of Hope just for the hell of it. We're called that because certainly from my personal journey, I think most people here would appreciate that, you know, if you have been unemployed, it sucks. I mean, it really, really sucks. And it's not just the fact that you haven't got the money coming in, but you suddenly lose self-confidence. Your friends suddenly walk across the road, or neighbors, and it's just awkward, and your kids are going, what's wrong with you? And everything about it sucks. So the flip side is a job is the best thing on the frigging planet pretty well. And you guys are in a position to offer that. But the message we're trying to say is do not think about this as altruistic reasons. Don't give people a job you feel sorry for them, or they're disabled or neurodiverse and they're not quite up to scratch. We're like, think of it completely the other way around and say, this is a brilliant talent pool. Why the hell are we not going for them? And by the way, when they get that job, they're going to come in, they're going to hit the ground running, they're going to work way harder, stay longer, and be great for your reputation. And everybody wins. And it also helps the rest of your organization and your culture, because everybody's noticing what's going on, and you're giving that hope through jobs. So.
Fantastic. James Fellows and Chance Bleu-Montgomery,
Thank you
please
so
make
much.
sure you connect with these two. Thank you very much,
Thank you very,
gents.
very much.